Hey, this is Brian again, and I'd like to ask you to do a favor. We can't do this work without people like you, so if you can, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about Bring Back the Porch.
Your kid has ADHD, they're a little hyper, you take a pill, they calm right down, no problem, right? Well, that's not right, because yes, that is some forms of ADHD, but there's a whole lot of other symptoms that can come along with it.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home.
Welcome to another episode of Manual Not Included. Before we get started, I want to plea to the viewing and listening audience to please, for the love of God, can you subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts to Bring Back the Porch. Subscribe, like, share, follow, do all that. It does the world of good, especially if you subscribe and follow and share the videos and reels that you see. That would be wonderful. Like you hear on every podcast. Like, subscribe, click that button or hit the subscribe button. So could you do that? Except I'm not going to put up that fancy graphic. Okay, before we get started, I got to tell a weird story that happened to me today with my son at the grocery store. And I'm a movie buff. I'm a movie guy. I love movies. I have an extensive collection. Movies are my thing. And especially I love almost all types of movies, but I really love horror movies. I'll watch any kind of horror movie. It doesn't matter what it is. And I got the realization today that maybe I watch too many horror movies. Because when you're at the grocery store, we're waiting in line to pay. And this older lady comes up to my son and kind of looks at me and him, and she says, "Would your son like a worry worm?" And I'm kind of like, okay. Didn't know what she was talking about. And she starts bringing out the Ziploc bag, and I'm like, is this lady going to try to give my kid like a homemade candy or treat? And I got to be like rude about it or something? Be like, no, he's not going to eat one of your homemade candies. Like hopefully any good parent would do, or politely accept it, then be like, we're not eating this and throw it in the garbage. But she brings out this like knitted little worm with like these googly eyes, and it's like this soft little yarn worm. And the second she did that, the first thought in my head, I thought, oh man, this is how horror movies start. I got an older lady that seems nice giving my kid something trivial, like just a little thing. I'm like, it's cursed. That's a cursed object. Our house is going to end up haunted. We're going to have a demonic spirit. This is honest to God what is running through my head. I know it's not true, but I'm kind of chuckling to myself that this is the first thing that goes. And then where my mind goes to. And then afterwards, she's like, can you read? And he says, yeah. And she brings out like a little sheet of paper for the worry worm with like a poem on it. I'm like, that's it. That's the nail in the coffin. That's the trifecta of cursed movies. Nice old lady, artifact, and now there's a poem involved. Anyway, we accepted the worry worm, and it's currently sitting in our house. So if all of a sudden my house becomes haunted, I want it on record that we know why. Anyway, on to the story of my son, the extra help kid who needs extra help. I believe we ended off last time he was of the age to go to kindergarten. But before we do that, I'd like to talk about him in sports around the same age. I think we talked about last time he had the failure to thrive. Walked late, all that kind of stuff, talked late. This age seems cool, regular kid, nothing special. So we try to put him in, your kids in social situations, activities, sports, all that kind of stuff. Get him out there, get him meeting other people, get him socialized. And so we put him in t-ball with his sister. I think he was pretty young. I think he was like 4, and my daughter was 6. And she took to it great. And there's something about my boy, who he would just sit, anytime you try to explain the rules of a game, and it's all kids of young age, so they're explaining it the best they can. They're just parent volunteers on how to play the game. He just kind of looks at you like you're not sure if he gets it, But in the back of your mind, you're just like, well, he's pretty young. He might not get it. And, you know, when it was time to hit the ball, he's just kind of like looking. Everybody's like, just swing the bat. And he's kind of looking like, what are you talking about? Swing the bat. And then he'd finally swing the bat. And you're like, okay, you got to run to the base. Like, you had to tell him, like, step by step as the game is happening what to do. So we thought into ourselves, we're like, maybe he was too young. We ask him if he likes it. He says no. And we're like, we're kind of old school parents, and we're like, well, you got to do something. You know, you're not just sitting at home doing nothing. You got to try some other things out. There's a million other things you could do. So we wait a year or so, and we put him in youth soccer because I said last week or last time that kid doesn't walk anywhere. He loves to run. He loves to skip. He loves to jump. He's always running ahead. So we're like, soccer. You put the ball in front of him, go kick the ball. Same thing though. You know, you explain like a drill and he kind of gets it. He's kind of like looking at the coach and trying to figure it out himself and try to explain the game, and he doesn't really know what's going on. He'd maybe kick the ball if it came towards him, but I spent hours of my personal time to watch my son walk beside the coach on the field and just talk about his day. Whatever thoughts were running through his head at the time. For the kid who I said never walks anywhere, for some reason during a whole hour-long soccer game, he was real good at walking. Walking right beside the coach and just talking to her the whole time. If the ball would swing by, he'd give a lazy little tunk towards the ball like he was trying. But yeah, so we're like, okay, maybe that's not it. Maybe it's like a team sport thing. Maybe there's too much going on for him. We're like, whatever, soccer's out. So then we go on to every parent's favorite, swimming lessons. Every kid signs up for swimming lessons, right? We start them at not really young, but young enough. You know, they teach him to blow bubbles in the water. You have to go in there with him. He wasn't having it. Something about this water thing. We just thought he was being very stubborn. Like, he would not stick his face in water to save his life. But it was like that at home as well. He hates showers. He bathes, like he has baths, but he hates showers. And we think it's because he doesn't like getting water. It's like he doesn't like getting water in his eyes, and he doesn't like the feeling of water getting splashed in his face, which is a little odd for a kid, you know. Like water parks, he would do that thing where, you know, you lift up your chin and you're really trying hard not to get your face wet. He was one of those kids. And we just thought he'd maybe scared of water. So that swimming lessons, it went all right. They wanted him to like do the same thing again. And we said, oh, maybe we'll wait a couple years. Maybe he's just too young to like it. He'll get used to the water after a while. But if we went swimming just as a family, like he'd be clung onto my back, like freaked out I was going to like let him go and he's going to drown, like that type of thing. And like this weird phobia. We don't know where he got it from. As an update though, I can say as he's gotten older, because in my head, you know, you get older, you get friends just like any kid, and you don't want to be left out. Like he didn't like going swimming. He'd maybe go to a water park, but he didn't like going swimming. And you know, the class starts going to the pool. And I told my wife, I bet you, like the second you get that little bit of peer pressure, sometimes people say peer pressure from friends and classmates isn't good, but sometimes it is good. And I said, he's going to get that little bit of peer pressure where he's like, I don't want to look like a wimp, you know, and I don't want to be left out. So he's going to go for it. And he has started to go for it. And especially since he got a pair of goggles, the ones that cover your nose and your eyes, he was so excited that he realized, because we tried this, trust me, when you think like, why didn't you try goggles? We tried goggles. He wouldn't wear them. He didn't like how they felt on his face. He wouldn't wear them. Trust me, we've tried this. But like any other kid, once they get older and your parents don't tell you to do it, of course it's his friend who gave him the goggles, then it's okay. When we give him the goggles, we're just, you know, being annoying. I'm sure that's the same for almost every parent. So he gets goggles from his friends and he's so excited. They were his friends. And he's like, can I get a pair? And I said, of course. Yeah. pair of goggles. His grandparents bring a pair of goggles that they don't use. And the first thing he does is gets us to fill up our kitchen sink so he can, with a snorkel, so he sat there for about half an hour on and off with just his face just in the water, which is, all these little things I'm telling you about my son, these little, what's the word, idiosyncrasies, just little things that he has that nobody thinks is a big deal as a parent on their own. It's part of a much broader picture that makes sense later on. So when he was sticking his face in that water, he might as well have been taking his first steps as a baby for the first time. Like, we're both like, high five, small victories, that type of thing. So yeah, swimming, still haven't got him in lessons, but man, he will now stick his face in the water. And last time we went swimming, I got him to go on the deep end, like over his head with a life jacket on. And he would even swim out to me as I was treading water and swim back on his own, it's insane what a big deal that was to us. Like, you have no idea. Small victories. You get that little wave of joy as a parent with little things like that. So yeah, sports, not really his thing. We're trying to find him his thing. We're waiting until he gets a little older. He can join track and field. We think he'd really like that. But anyway, back to school. Starting kindergarten. He was at the age where in the fall of 2020, we had the option of putting him in kindergarten. So at the beginning of the year, we're thinking he's going to be one of those kids where he's either going to be the youngest kid in kindergarten or the youngest kid in the class, or we had the option of waiting a year. Well, then he'll be like one of the older kids in the class, which was no big deal to us. We didn't know what to do. So we're thinking on it before registration. And what happened at the beginning of 2020, or I guess I should say 2019, was when we think of this. What happened in 2020, everybody? About March, the world shuts down. COVID-19. So we're waiting to see if schools will reopen. Of course, they don't. So it's getting closer to school time, and we have to have an online orientation. And like I said, we're wondering whether we should put them in school or not, because it's all going to be online. And so we're having the virtual meeting. And my son walks up and hangs up, stops the conversation, hangs up on the teacher, closes the laptop and says it's boring. So I guess that was our answer. We waited a year. And lo and behold, first day of his actual kindergarten, he gets to go to an actual school with kids in person. We were happy. And he goes there and, you drop him off. You worry, like any other parent, first day worries, maybe a little more with him that everything's okay, because he's very homebody-ish and likes to be close to his parents, which is fine. And we were a little worried, but I dropped him off his first day. He was cool. I said I wasn't going to go inside with him because I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want him to think that was an okay thing for me to go in with him all the time, and he needs me. And so I dropped him off outside, gave him a hug, gave him a high five, and he says he's good. I'm like, all right. No tears, no nothing. Another small victory as a parent. It's all good. And as he's progressing through kindergarten, they have teachers and teachers' aides, and they have the feeling that he might need speech therapy. He's having trouble vocabulary and speaking, a bit of I'd call it a stutter. Not really a stutter. It's more of, it's a type of stutter, I guess. It's not like a ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, that type of thing. Sometimes it is. I'll put it out there. But most of the time it's trouble getting the first word out. Like he'll drag it out. Like if he's saying it's, it'd be like, it's, that type of thing. So he has that, and it gets a little more prevalent if he's nervous, anxious, it happens more. So they say he'll go through school and do speech therapy with one of the teacher's aides. So like, okay, whatever you guys got to do. And I will say this, schools nowadays are not like school when I was a kid. I couldn't believe how inclusive and helpful teachers are now. I'm not saying all the teachers back when I went to school were perfect. I had lots and lots of good teachers, but there was a lot who back in the day just didn't give a crap. You could tell. I know it might sound rough, but we all know it's true. Some of them should not have been teachers, especially you have something like, a stutter ADHD. There was no supports really back then. So when I went to this and they're like, oh, we'll help out. You're like, really? Okay, that's really cool. Thanks. And so he goes to speech through the school, and they say, we think he would benefit even with more speech from more, I don't want to say professional, like an actual speech therapist through Alberta Health Services, which he would definitely apply for, or we'd get in, no problem. They do the paperwork. We're like, okay. And so we've had a couple of them because we had a break in between, which is part of a later story. Why? So we get the speech therapist lady who would come to our house for like half an hour once a week, and you do your little, me, her, and my son would do little exercises, play games, and as you're playing games, they kind of teach him some things, and you practice at home with these certain techniques. And we were doing that. Kate, just another thing, doesn't seem out of the ordinary. Kindergarten, grade 1, start going on, and the teacher says, I think your son has ADHD. You say, okay. So what does that entail? And there's like a test you have to fill out, and you have to get it signed off by a doctor. They do a test and to see if your kid actually has ADHD or not. They're like, we think he does. The teachers and the staff at school say that he thinks he does. And in my head, because that wasn't a thing when I was a kid. Not really. Or when it was, or what you learn from TV, of course, or books or movies, is ADHD. Your kid has ADHD. They're a little hyper. You take a pill. They calm right down. No problem, right? Well, that's not right. Because, yes, that is some forms of ADHD, but there's a whole lot of other symptoms that can come along with it. And little did we know, like I've been mentioning all these little things that has been happening to us with our son, and part of a broader picture, this is another piece of the puzzle, is the ADHD diagnosis. So we get the test done, and sure enough, the doctor thinks, yeah, we think your son has ADHD. I say, okay. And in my head, just another little hurdle, He said, we'll give him a pill. It'll all be good. No problems in the future. Well, there might have been more problems coming up as he gets even a little bit older. Now we're getting into the rougher stuff. But next episode, I will talk about, still to this day, probably one of the scariest moments in my life, especially scariest moment when it came to my kids, and especially my son, that has, and hopefully will ever happen, actually. I hope nothing like that ever happens again. That happened to my son while we were at home. But in the next episode, I will really dive into that one. And yeah, most scared I've ever been in my life. I'll talk about that night on the next episode. And don't forget to please, I'm going to beg again, subscribe, follow, like, share. Get the podcast out there as much as you can. I said I'm telling these stories because it really sucks being in a situation like this. Not being in the situation, but thinking you're the only one out there in the situation. And I'm here to tell you you're not. And so if you have a kid like my son, or any kind of problems you want to talk about, you can leave a comment. You can email me. I can put up my email. And yeah, bring back the porch, subscribe, follow, all that kind of stuff. And I'll be back on the next episode to tell you about the scariest moment as a parent I've ever had, and hopefully will ever have.
Hey, this is Brian again, and I'd like to ask you to do a favor. We can't do this work without people like you, so if you can, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about Bring Back the Porch.